the episode opens with Kingpin talking to his lackeys. So basically talking to, his boys, like bucking them. And so what happens is, Kingpin is pissed that Muse still is on the loose. And Kingpin also finds out that Matt Murdock is back as Daredevil. And he is definitely, you can tell he's pressed and he's pissed off. And we see Hector's niece is kind of having nightmares about what happened. And in those nightmares, we see, just like a replay of what happened when Daredevil fought against Muse in the very last episode before this one. And we see that Heather, because if you guys know, in these shows these scenes go by so fast. So we see that Heather is talking to Max. She's trying to figure out what's going on, because basically what happened was when they were in the shower together, he did his thug fizzle, if you catch my drift. What ended up happening was Matt, she saw a bruise on Matt's side, and she was like, where did that come from? He makes out with her. She obviously doesn't pay attention because it's Matt Murdock, he got the riz. And so we see that, Matt is really just trying to avoid everything that she's saying. And she knows that something is wrong. And she's obviously very emotional because she thinks that this can affect their relationship. And Matt's like, yo, we're like, I'm good. I got things that I'm trying to go through. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. And so then we go to Matt walking into his law firm, and we see that one of his boys, who was an ex-cop, right? He knows that Matt is back as the freaking Daredevil, and he is not happy with Matt about it. And Matt's just like, look, bro, I gotta do what I gotta do. And if you got a problem, like, you're the one that they used to call on me when I donned the suit, so you can't really be mad. And so he walks off, and he's mad at Matt for suiting up again. And it's more so because of the vigilante laws and all that stuff that's going on. It just makes everything a mess. And we also see, right, that his business partner is also like, where's Matt? And so she knows that something weird is going on. And so we go back to the scene of Kingpin where he's crashing out about Daredevil again. Like, he's really pressed about this, and he is not happy that Daredevil is back at all. And we also see Angela talking to Matt again about what happened, right? And we see that Yuri is kind of inspecting where Muse's lair was and where he used to drain blood, and they're going to the train station to see what is going on. And then we go to another scene where we see Vanessa meet with Luca. And we then see Luca try to talk like Vanessa into coming back, you know what I mean? Into maybe like taking Kingpin's spot or whatever. And so she goes along with what Luca says. And we also see that Angela is finally having her appointment with Muse, right? So Muse walks in. And so basically throughout this whole entire thing, we see that Yuri like finds out who Muse is, and she finds his identity, and she brings it to Kingpin. And so Kingpin's like, you know what? I'll take it from here. Thank you. And while that's happening, we see Muse kind of like losing his mind in front of Angela. So wild that like his nose starts bleeding, and while he's wiping the blood from his nose, he's drawing blood on paper. So it just shows how crazy that this dude actually is. And so we then see Muse finally reveal himself to Angela, and Angela is really like, she's crying. She's obviously scared, and he ends up knocking her out. He ends up slamming because she tries to take the door to escape, and he slams her into the door. And basically what happened was Muse was kind of cutting. He slit her wrist open, and he was probably going to use her to drain her blood and paint on this big white like carpet thing. And we see that doesn't happen because Daredevil ends up popping in, because Daredevil ended up crashing into Muse's lair when the cops were there, and Daredevil ends up finding that Muse drew a picture of Angela, so he knew that he had to go and save his girl. So we see him come in, and we see just Matt. We end up just seeing them go into a whole fight. But before that happens, right, we do see Heather wake up and all of this stuff. And I even forgot to talk about the fact that Muse like had a gun in his hand, which made me, I didn't know if he was a shooter or if he was like going to kill himself after he drew Angela, because it seemed like in his head Angela was his kind of like final destination. But anyways, back to the battle. Daredevil and Muse get into an intense fight to where like Daredevil's little stick, like he literally like stabs like through Muse's like chest and pulls him back. It was a really brutal fight, but Daredevil doesn't kill Muse. Heather ends up shooting Muse. She shoots him twice in his chest, and we see Muse die instantly. And so that happens, but we see that Angela obviously has lost so much blood that she falls and she's mad, unconscious. So Daredevil does save her. He ends up getting her like to a stable place where like she's not gonna like run out of blood and die. And so we see the task force come in, end up stabilizing her, getting her to the ambulance or whatever happens. And so we see Kingpin also pop up at Heather's office, and basically he says to his guys, he's like, look, like, you guys are the ones that killed Muse. It wasn't Daredevil. And so we already know what's going to happen now. Like, he's going to probably throw a press. Yes, that happens. And so Heather basically is in hospital, and she tells Matt that she saw the Daredevil and that he knew her name. All right, and obviously is Matt Murdock, obviously, and so we see in the TV behind Matt, we see that Wilson Fisk does a public showing with his task force, and we see also go to a scene of Vanessa smiling and Kingpin. Right after that scene is kind of holding Muse's mask, so obviously it's cool. And so what happens is Kingpin is eating alone in this restaurant, and we see Luca walk in. Luca pulls a gun to kill him, but Buck shoots him in his head first, and that's how the episode ends. Now, I think a lot of people off the rip are going to think that Vanessa set up Kingpin. I don't think that's the case. What I think happened is I think that Vanessa was working with Kingpin to kill Luca, because Luca has been the problem in this whole operation. So what do you do when there's a problem in your operation? You kill them. You take them out. So that's what I think happened. This was the best Daredevil episode so far. I love the costumes, and I love that he's fighting, and I love that we are seeing like actual crime being solved. And this is building the conversation of obviously that Kingpin, Task Force, and Daredevil are going to face off, and isn't that they're not going to face off with him. We are going to see Frank Castle pop up, but I'm not shocked that Frank Castle didn't pop up in this episode either. Like I'm not shocked, but this was the best episode so far. We'll love to hear what you guys got to say. Please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and peace out.